We wish Josh the very best of luck today, and Callum Hawkins, of course, who is Great Britain's other marathon runner. He came 9th in Rio, hoping to build on that fantastic performance there in his second big mega championship marathon. And it's a looping course. They'll run it 4 times. It starts at Tower Bridge, and it's looking absolutely resplendent today, isn't it? Actually, not dissimilar to some of the days we've had recently for the London Marathon, and I'm delighted to hand you over now to our marathon commentary team, Paula Radcliffe, Brendan Foster and Steve Cram.
Well, it's a beautiful day in London, and we've had so many wonderful London marathons, and the last one was won by Daniel Wanjiru, and he may well start as the favourite here. He's certainly familiar with the course on Tower Bridge, just before the halfway point normally, and it's the start of this World Championship marathon. So they got 4 laps. This will effectively be the start straight and the finish straight. They'll not come back onto Tower Bridge until they finish the race. And the lap is just over 10k, so 42 kilometers and a little bit of the marathon. It's pretty much along the embankment. Those of you who are used to watching the London Marathon will be very familiar with this part of the route, the Tower of London there. And we've got an exciting race in prospect, and a good representation from Great Britain, as we've already been listening to. Josh Griffiths, great story. Andy Davis, who's been brought in as a late replacement, and Callum Hawkins, who I can already see right up to the 4, kind of 3 or 4 in from the left-hand side. He's wearing sunglasses and the white and the blue of Great Britain with the kind of blue shoulders, and he's just tucked in there. What a brilliant performance from him in Rio. More of that as the race unfolds, but we've got very good Kenyans, very good Ethiopians lining up here in what is always still one of the highlights for me of any championships.
It certainly is, Steve. I agree with that completely. But I'm delighted here this morning to see the crowds out on the roads of London. Here we are in Olympic Stadium commentating from a distance, and here we are on the streets of London, largely running along the embankment, eventually ending up around St. Paul's and back along the embankment. 4 laps of just around 10,000 meters, and crowds lining the route already on this famous part of the London Marathon course, the bit that runs along past Tower Bridge and down towards eventually the Mall. But British distance running, in terms of today's performance, we're really looking at Callum Hawkins to provide us with a run for our money, and this crowd out watching him are equally expecting a battle with the Africans, a battle with the Ethiopians, and the Japanese team are pretty strong, battle with the Kenyans. But it would be wonderful for us today, Paula, if we were able to see a Callum Hawkins feature in this race, wouldn't it?
It would be really special. I mean, I think the guys racing here today, the people racing on the track, have had the opportunity to compete in an amazing atmosphere and an amazing stadium. We know that the crowds on the streets of London for a marathon in London will make it a really special day, and to see a Brit up there would be great.
Well, a nice, easy, steady start, and the laps, as we've been explaining, are very familiar. This would be where you're running into the final miles of the London Marathon, but it's just the start here. They'll go along the embankment, almost along to Westminster. We'll be able to see Big Ben, and they turn around, come back along the embankment, but then head off into the city, around St. Paul's Cathedral, around the Guildhall, the Bank of England, and then back, drop down onto the embankment, and then that'll be the completion of the first lap. So I'm pretty sure the crowds are going to build as we progress through the next couple of hours. Lots going on, of course, still back here in the stadium, and we'll be going backwards and forwards to the marathon, but for now, let's catch up with the long jump. Well, meanwhile, Tower Bridge looking resplendent in the Sunday morning sunshine. The Shard in the background, that's where they'll eventually end up for the finish. They left there about 15 minutes ago. And let's just have a look at the lap. I mentioned earlier on, there's 4 laps. They won't come back to Tower Bridge until the end. So they go along the embankment. Very familiar route for the London Marathon normally. The last few miles, the curve of the river. We can see Big Ben in the background. They go almost all the way to Big Ben, almost to Westminster, but then they have a little turnaround point just before there, and then head back in the same direction. And then they just take a little left-hander and go up through Paternoster Square, around St Paul's, Guildhall, as you can see there, Bank of England, through the city, and then drop back down on the embankment. And then that's about 10k just there. They will go back and do 4 of those laps. That last little bit, as I said, only on the very last lap. So they've just turned around, they've just reached that turnaround point, and they are now heading back along the embankment, approaching 5 kilometers. It's been pretty slow up to this point, nothing much happening really, and a big group involved, people from obviously Kenya, Ethiopia, the familiar African contingent, but Daniel Miucci, well, Mo Farah fans, go back in your history, might remember this man racing Mo Farah over 10,000 meters in the European Championships in Barcelona a long time ago, it seems now. 15:58, that's very slow for these guys. And Callum Hawkins is in the group just a little further back, just tucked on the inside. Now, he's been training in Spain. There were some issues or some suggestions that maybe things hadn't been because he's been having a cracking year, but I'm told he's been last few weeks have gone reasonably well prepared for this, looking forward to racing well, and he won't be frightened about being up near the front.
No, he won't be. Sorry, Brent. He won't be frightened at all. I mean, he was very happy to commit in Rio to really go out and run a very, very brave race there. Made the decision to skip the London Marathon, to take that pre-selection position and to concentrate solely on this. So he's been training in Mallorca, and by all indications things have gone well, and he's very excited to get out and race.
And they're still moving along the embankment, and I've been impressed already with the crowd that are out there watching them today. It's a decent day for marathon running. It could have been oppressive if it had been like it was a few weeks ago. There's the feed stations for the individual countries, and remember, this is a completely different organization to the London Marathon because it's only this number of runners and a few numbers of runners, so it's specifically designed and organized. So the lead athletes, and that's McConnon of Ethiopia leading, looking for their feed station, looking for their specific drink which will have their country flag on it. So the organization slightly different to the organization of the London Marathon, which is about catering for the masses. This is about catering for the elite, but the crowds are still happy to see these elite, and actually it's a great course, Steve, for spectating, because you can see them 4 times or 8 times as they come up and down the embankment. So I think that's why the crowds are out. It's a free show, it's the marathon show, and it's also the World Championship show, and later on in the day we'll see the women take this course.
And next week the walks as well. Tom Bosworth, the walks are going to be on the Mall leading up to Buckingham Palace, which will be fabulous, and the very last day of these championships. But so far this morning, Mekinen the first to show his colours really at the front after that very slow first 5 kilometers. They're not going as slow as this. This is actually slow motion, just in case you're wondering. There's Wanjiru, the winner of the London Marathon, and he'll be hoping he can repeat that today. But very early stages, slow pace. Let's pop back the stadium. Well, still early stages. Glad to say Callum Hawkins is still well up there. Haven't seen Josh Griffiths yet, but I think he's up there, or a little bit further back. Brendan's telling me we get 5 kilometer splits, so we'll keep an eye on how the Brits are doing. But this is the very scenic part of the route. The idea with World Marathon courses is they try and show off the host city as much as they can, and this one doing that very well indeed in front of St Paul's. Beautiful morning in London, and as Brendan was saying, and the guys are saying, Paula was saying, nice marathon running weather. It's not too warm. The winds that we've had and the rain that we've had at times have thankfully abated. A good crowd starting to build, and I'm sure those crowds will continue to build as the morning goes on. Well, we've mentioned Wanjiru, very good Kenyan team here. They've got Gideon Kipketer in there as well, Jeffrey Karui, who won Boston and Sigai, the silver medalist in these championships 2 years ago in Beijing for Ethiopia. Tola, though, perhaps their big favourite. No Kenenisa Bekele, as we said earlier on. But high quality in this World Marathon final.
Showing off the lovely historic parts of this great city as they leave St. Paul's Cathedral and Pater Noster Square behind them, heading back around the city and then eventually back onto the embankment. But 18 degrees out there, not much of a wind, there's a shower installed there on the course. The athletes have run through that, a little welcome cooling for some of them, and as they move through there, this part of the course you wouldn't expect as many people, but I can tell you they're gathering on the embankment. London Marathon style, London Marathon day.
Well, not too much happening there, so let's get back to stadium. We've got these 400-meter hurdles heats, and Andrew's got some news. And talking about going smoothly, we've got our first bit of pace put on in the marathon, and guess who it is? It's Great Britain's Callum Hawkins, the man who led in Rio for a while, and he's doing it again here at the World Championship Marathon. He's decided that very slow pace, he's had enough of that. He wants to make it a proper good run race. He's in the World Championship final, why not? He's in good shape. He's run personal bests at half marathon this year. He knows that this is a fantastic stage for him and a fantastic opportunity. Early stages, of course, and the quality of this field here is immense. So it just shows what confidence he's running with at the moment. And Paula, I remember in Rio we were kind of, oh really, you know, do you want to go and do that? But the conditions though here are not the same as in Rio, so why not? And Callum Hawkins leading the World Championship Marathon. And
he's not leading it at a stupid pace, he's leading it at a sensible pace. I think he's just decided, look guys, this is the World Championships, it's a good course, it's a fast course, we're in great conditions, there's very little wind, 55% humidity, so it's not tough there. And this is a man as well advised by great of marathon running Steve Jones, and what would Steve have done? Steve would have gone out in front of this race and decided we're not messing around here, we're making this into a proper race, and the toughest man and the best man on the day is going to win the race.
Well, almost 10k completed, and Callum Hawkins, and let's face it, Paula, he likes to run in the front. It's not like he's just doing something because he's panicking, but we see Callum, we see him on the roads over the last couple of years running good half marathons. We saw him 10k 31:35, 15:37 there, so that was a bit faster than the first 10k, but he's comfortable leading, he likes to lead, he's an aggressive runner, he's an aggressive front runner, he's not overawed, and I honestly think that this field is not as strong as the field that was in Rio, and he led in Rio. He's got that extra experience, he's powerful. We saw him in the cross country, in the Edinburgh cross country earlier in the year, doing exactly this. He got caught on the finish line that day. Well, I'm not trying to run away from the field today, but it's good to see Callum Hawkins. It was lovely to see current leader Callum Hawkins, Great Britain, and by the way, Scotland.
I know, and absolutely belongs there. I mean, you can see him looking around saying, okay guys, did any of you wake up there? Do any of you want to come with me and make this a proper race? Because yes, that last 5k was 15:37, so he's picked it up to 2:12 pace, but a lot of that has just been done in the last couple of kilometers, so he's actually running faster than that, and he's stretching out the field, and he's capable of doing it. I mean, he's run close to breaking the hour for the half marathon. If anything, if you look at him maybe against the progression of Mo Farah and the stage that Callum Hawkins is at in his career, does he have a little bit more potential even over the marathon distance? Certainly the marathon distance is going to be Callum's best distance, and he's not been afraid to go to it at this early stage in his career and to give it his absolute best shot and to invest very hard in the training and the preparation that he's doing for that.
But if nothing else, he's poked the wasp's nest here, hasn't he? Because they've all started to buzz around a little bit, and the big names, the people we expect to contend for medals, and hopefully along with Callum Hawkins, who knows, they're now well to the fore. So the race is on now, as Paula was saying, 15:38, 15:36 for Callum Hawkins himself in terms of the lead. So they're operating at just inside 2:13 overall pace, but it'll get quicker from here on in. And the man who won here in London, trying to see where he is, just a little further adrift. Kipketer, who's there. Sorry, Karui there, and Wanjiru just up there with him as well. As they make the turnaround point on the final lap, they'll just go straight into the finish over Tower Bridge. So the crowd's starting to build here, which is wonderful. And it's always an odd thing to see in a marathon with 3 laps to go.
That's great, that, Steve. It's like a mile race, you know, 4 laps of the track as we overlook the Tower of London, and the athletes back in the stadium getting ready for the next round.
Yeah, the tower there is resplendent, but the athletes out here in the sunshine ready for the next heat of the 400-meter hurdles. Incidentally, we are going backwards and forwards between the marathon and the events in the stadium. If you want to keep watching the marathon the whole time, it's on the red button, it's on the website. There is no commentary. And one or two might think, yeah, that's a better option than listening to us. But hopefully you're enjoying our coverage of the marathon this morning. Brendan and Paula with me. We're enjoying watching Callum Hawkins. Been leading, moving things along, just grabbing some water there. It's just warming up a little bit, but both the pace and the temperature. And they're on this 10k lap, or a little bit more than 10k. We've been noticing, given that McMaster was disqualified in the stadium for stepping on the line and shortening the route of the 400-meter hurdles, some of these athletes have been shortening the route of the marathon. It wouldn't normally happen in the London Marathon because those barriers are there all the time. But parts of this route, there are actually no curbs, and when they're going around 1 or 2 bends, they're definitely cutting the corner. I'm not happy, Paula's not happy, Callum Hawkins has not transgressed, I'm happy to say. I mean, it's not a disqualification, but if you do enough of them, you're running a few yards less than the full marathon.
If you do enough of those, that all adds up. Given there's 4 laps, there's a lot of switchback bends, and they're basically running the tangents over the curb. So they're going up the curb, across on the pavement for a little bit, and dropping back down. And when you add all of those up, yes, that makes a significant difference. And I think somebody should at least get out there and just warn the athletes that they can't keep doing that.
But the athletes surely know they've got to follow the course, Paula. And over time, well, we've seen that happen many times before, but it's not right. And there's Callum Hawkins now, settling down. Callum Hawkins, who's promising such a lot at this distance. He's only 25 years of age. He's grown up in the last 2 years significantly. He grew up an awful lot in Rio last year when he was amongst the big boys and running comfortably alongside them for a lot of the route. There, the splendid sights of London on a beautiful day. It's pretty good for running. It's better for spectating, but it's pretty good for running. There's not much of a wind out there. The temperature rising a little from about 18 degrees. It'll probably get warmer in the afternoon, but it's not too bad. Just imagine what it would have been like if this had been 3 weeks ago, when it was people were hiding in the next to the air conditioning just to keep cool from a normal day's work. Well, this is not a normal day's work for many people, but it's a normal day's work for Callum Hawkins, who obviously went off to train in Spain in order to try and replicate the heat that was happening in London at the time. But things have changed a little. If you look at the black vest there, that's Yamauchi, a Japanese athlete. He's a serial marathon runner. He runs at least 8 or 10 marathons every year. They love him in Japan. He's called the People's Champion, and he's a very good runner in his own right. But it's great to see him in the race. And once again, Callum Hawkins just edging the pace along, moving it along, and then letting everyone just come alongside him and come past him.
At 10k, I think we may have mentioned that Josh Griffiths and Andy Davis, the other 2 British athletes who are in this, were about 20 seconds behind Callum Hawkins. We're approaching, when they get to the turnaround point, they'll be moving towards 15k. We'll get another split then. Pace has definitely picked up a little bit, but for the time being, more 400-meter hurdles heats. And Andrew, I know you've got a half an eye in this marathon as well, and it's a busy old morning, but you can bring us up to date with the next one. Meanwhile, in the marathon, they're through 15 kilometers. The pace continues just to pick up a little bit. The 5k between 10 and 15 was the quickest so far, around 15:21, 15:22. Callum Hawkins still in the lead group. Plenty of athletes in the lead group. They're still operating in around 2:12 pace, and the big names happy to let others just keep the pace moving along. Although the lead group has kind of whittled down a little. There's about 25 athletes in that lead group.
A wonderful sight there, Steve, of St. Paul's Cathedral overlooking the city, and all the city growing up around it these days. Used to be the main on the skyline. It used to be the visible sight. Now there's buildings all around, and you can see everywhere you go the city is growing in that direction. Callum Hawkins there on the inside there, and I was just interested to see, he was looking around just to have a look around to see who's there and to see who's in contention, and I just hope the experience that he gained when he was in Rio, when he ran so well in Rio, that that stands him in good stead.
Just another word on the tight corners, you know, just when the groups are that slow, we've seen a couple of slow-mos. There's one, you know, U-turn. This is something they're not so used to. In championships, we do have these sort of courses. The walkers are a little bit more used to it. But you know, when they're in a big group like that, just watch them when they're going around these tight bends. I mean, a lot of these guys run lots of road races where they do that sort of thing as well. But particularly the turnaround points just need to be a little bit wary. But there's a bit of pace on now, stretching out, which is better. This group, I think there's 32 in this group. And these guys contain all of the main contenders, or this group contains all of the main contenders. And as Brennan was saying, Callum Hawkins nicely tucked in there. But there's definitely a little bit more pace on. You can see at the back of that group, they're now a bit more strung out. One or two starting to struggle to stay with it.
Well, although the overall pace is not startlingly fast so far, what I have been doing, particularly in the last 5-10 kilometers, is yo-yoing that pace, stretching it out a little bit. And when you're stretching it out to sub 2:10 pace, and then back again and then surging again, that starts to do damage, and it's starting to do damage to a lot of this field. You're starting to see it string out. You can see Gillis of Canada now just starting to fall off the back of that group, and that's going to continue to happen. And some people do not belong in that group and are not going to be able to stay there, going to pay a big price for it later on. And I'm glad to see Callum, just when he does make those surges, he's tempering a little bit. He's not wasting too much energy. He's doing it, as you said, Steve, just to kind of poke them a little bit, just to stir it up, just to get somebody else to string it out, as Kipketer has now done. And he's almost continuing the groundwork that Callum Hawkins laid, and that will continue to whittle down this group and make it safer on those turns then.
And if you think about it, we said 15:21. They're going to run a faster 5K here. And once you start getting in the 15:10s, and that, you know, that's fast marathon running, and you know, it's proper fast marathon running, much faster than most of these guys, including Callum, perhaps, are capable of. So it's just a case of judging whether or not at this stage you want to go with that, whether you sit back, whether you hope that others who do go with that will suffer. Look at the damage that's been done to the lead group here. Within the last 90 seconds, 2 minutes or so, a group of 30 who are happily involved in the race now are being well stretched out, and there's a group of 4 or 5 just starting to move away already.
And when you look at the map of the course, Steve, it's pretty easy till they come along off the embankment and do the little twist. Now those twists around St. Paul's Cathedral are literally there to show off the city. But the marathon runners themselves, they would much prefer just to have run up and down the embankment. But you marathon runners, Paula, a bit boring, eh?
Well, this is an interesting course. It's a tough course. I mean, these twists and turns, these tight corners are really going to be hard, particularly in the last lap of this course. In the last 10 kilometers of a marathon, what you don't want to have to be doing is sharp U-turns, sharp turns on feet that are already sore, already starting to hurt. Legs and everything is just starting to be really hurting at that point. So that's going to make it very, very tough there.
So if you were in charge of the course, you'd have missed out all of that bit and run up and down the river, yeah?
No, you want an interesting course as well, and you also, if you're a front runner like I was, you want to be able to break away. So actually those twists and turns are pretty good, because you can get away and out of view, and once you're out of vision of the chasing pack, it's far easier to stay away.
But I know you used to like counting lampposts and things.
Well, there's plenty out there. Callum Hawkins just getting a good view of him there, and that pace that's on at the front, he's just trying to settle and find where he wants to be in that group as it breaks up. That's important. Try and keep his rhythm going as much as he possibly can. And as that continues, athletics is continuing back here in the stadium. We're back with the marathon. There have been further developments after settling down again. Callum Hawkins decided to keep the pace going. They're just passing the halfway mark in 65.28, which is an indication that the pace has continued to pick up. When it's slowed again, Callum decided, no, I want to keep this pace going. And then that challenge has been picked up, and we're starting to see one or two of the bigger names dropping off. Sigai, silver medalist from 2 years ago, is struggling way off the back of this lead group. So all of a sudden, even in the last minute, these three have pulled away, Tola, Karoo and Kipketer. And I don't think Wanjiru, he hasn't covered the moves very well, the London champion from this year's London Marathon. He's leading that chasing group. Callum Hawkins is in that chasing group. They're about 30 meters behind, maybe a little bit more, but this is a real effort by Tola, one of the pre-race favorites. This bronze medalist from the Olympic 10,000 meters, pushing on at an early stage. He's got two Kenyans for company.
I think what we've just seen is what the difference between a mass city run and a championship run. Because in the mass city runs, they've got pacemakers all the time. They've got pacemakers at various paces all the way. They demand pacemaking. Here, without pacemakers, they're not quite sure what to do. But obviously the message from the coaches and the managers and the athletes themselves, get to the halfway point and then start doing some business. And that's exactly what's happening.
Back to the stadium. Well, things changing in the marathon. The three who tried to break away now down to two, Karui and Tola, the Olympic bronze medalist at 10,000 meters, looking very comfortable. The tall Ethiopian next to Karui, winner of the Boston Marathon, and Kipketer looking a little tired. Then there's a chasing group of four, which includes the London winner for 2017, Wanjiru, Simbu in there, and also Matai, and then another chasing group behind that which contains Britain's Callum Hawkins. So Callum's in the top 10 at the moment. He's close enough to the group which would think maybe there's still a bronze medal available, because these two look to be moving very nicely. Still a long way to go. Definitely Kipketer is suffering from having gone with these two, and that group will start to chase him down. We'll get a view of Callum hopefully shortly, but these two going well.
Yeah, Callum Hawkins, we talked about he's having to mature as a championship marathoner and as a marathoner, and he had some decisions to make when these three, when Tola in particular, burst to the front and started this race really moving, and Callum decided to maintain his pace. He'd stirred it up enough to get the race moving, and then he gradually maintained his pace. He didn't panic. He didn't try and go with the medals as the medals appeared to disappear. He's more relying on the fact that there will be people ahead of him who are not able to sustain this pace. Not many of them. He's definitely at the hot end of this race, and most of the people up there do belong there, but there are definitely going to be casualties.
Brendan, this is Wanjiru, the winner from London this year, with Simbu chasing. These two now have got Kipketer in their sights, the man in third, who looks to have maybe gone a bit too hard too soon.
Well, I'm also impressed with your judgment, Steve, because you told me before the race that Simbu would be an athlete to watch, an outsider to watch, and he's running really well there along the embankment. And the London Marathon winner, well, this year, a few months ago, he was running along the embankment and he was being chased by the great Kenenisa Bekele. Today, he's got company. He's about fifth place. Would that be right?
Yeah, Wanjiru's fourth, Simbu's fifth, and then there's another one of the Ethiopians. I think it's Mekinen behind them, and then maybe the Eritrean as well. And then we're trying to see just how far distant Callum Hawkins is, because Kipketer's now got himself back to those two. They seem to have settled at the front a little bit. A couple of anxious looks behind. But these three well clear at the moment, but still a long way to go.
Yeah, Kipketer, he's had a busy year. He was second in the Tokyo Marathon, and then was part of the sub 2 hour, the breaking 2 hour attempt in Monza earlier this year, part of the battalion of pacemakers that they really had in there. So he's well used to running at extremely fast paces, but he was switching in and out every 5 kilometers there, and has worked himself steadily back onto the group. He takes a look back now behind him just to see where the danger's coming in. He'll feed that back to at least to his teammate with him.
Keep watching that, Tony, and we're watching the marathon here. Karui leading the Boston Marathon winner against Tola, the Olympic bronze medalist at 10,000 meters. What a nice contrast there. Karui, he's coached by Canova, well-known coach of a lot of the, in the past, some of the Kenyans, Italian coach, and he said that this guy is still developing his career. He doesn't do high mileage yet, and he's still got improvement. Well, he's certainly showing that here today. These two are going very strong moving ahead of Gideon Kipketer. Gideon Kipketer, who ran well in Tokyo this year behind Wilson Kipsang, but he looks as though he got back to them a little bit, Brendan, but now that gap's growing again.
The gap is growing again, but these are the two strongest runners in the field. Both of these athletes in the past have run under 27 minutes for 10,000 metres, so they're class athletes. Olympic bronze medalist Tola, so he's a great runner, and Karui, you know, he's strong. When he was a young man, he surprised everyone by running under 27 minutes. So we've got the two. If you look at the analysis of the field, you've got the two best runners now finding themselves where they often are, right at the very front. And then Kipketer, who tried, come back, gone back, not been able to sustain the pace. But that last split, Paula, that 14:29, that was staggering.
Yeah, that's phenomenal pace, and you can see why the field is strung out as it is and the damage that it has done further back down the field. Kipketer's now got a long, lonely race ahead of him to try and maintain that. Simbu now worked himself into fourth and is closing again on Kipketer, but they have to keep their focus, they have to keep their concentration, and they come into the twisty sections and they can't see ahead of them where they're working to. They really just have to maintain their own rhythm and run their own race.
Just a quick word on Josh Griffiths and Andrew Davis. They're in 62nd and 63rd positions through 25k, running together more than 4 minutes behind our leaders who've just gone through the picture. Callum Hawkins running a brilliant race again in the World Championships in 9th place. He ran a sub 15-minute 5k split himself, which is phenomenal in the marathon, and he's still got others he could pick off, but these 3 medal positions held by 2 Kenyans and an Ethiopian at the moment. Well, not much changing in terms of positions in this marathon, but it's beginning to get to a really crucial point of the race. They're approaching 30 kilometers. They'll also approach the bell. You don't often say that in the marathon. And a 14:44, another fast 5k section of the race, and that means that last 10 kilometers has been running in about 29:13. That's pretty quick running by anybody's standards, so that's why they're out in front, that's why they have a lead. Kipketer, though, is doing a good job of hanging on to 3rd place, and if anything, he's pulling away from the group behind. We haven't seen too much of Callum Hawkins just recently. We'll get a split as quickly as we can from that 30-kilometer point, but just briefly, Paula, first of all, these two certainly seem to have it between them with a lap to go.
Yeah, these two definitely do. Kipketer, I agree, is running strongly at the moment. He's 23 seconds down on the lead two, and then there's about 15-second gap back to Simbu and Wanjiru running together. And, yeah, it's about another 20 seconds now, 23 seconds back to those two running together. And now we're going to see Callum Hawkins in a little bit. I make it he's running in 7th and 8th or 8th and 9th position, with Daniele Meucci just behind him. There he goes. 8th position for Callum Hawkins is a minute 6 down on the leaders, but he's maintaining his pace. He's definitely, or I would say certainly, in with a very good chance of running a personal best out there today in a championship race, and he's really acquitted himself well so far. We'll see how strongly he can maintain that over this second lap, over this final lap, sorry.
Class performance by Callum Hawkins. Let's hope he can close as strongly as he's opened, as Kipketer looking over his shoulder. He's in the bronze medal position, and he's running powerfully too. He's had some ups and downs. He's been on his own for quite a while. He's caught the 2 leaders, then he dropped off, and now but he does look in full flow there, striding along through the city part of the event, eventually back down onto the embankment. And now Wanjiru further down the field. He's the London Marathon champion earlier in the year. Well, we did think he would feature largely in this one. We thought he'd be the danger. We thought he might even be the man to beat. And Simbu, Tanzania, just pulling away from Wanjiru.
You know, in London, Simbu went out much harder than he's ever done before and actually faded quite badly, which is, he still ran a personal best, 2:09 something. This race might have suited him a little bit more in the sense that he's good in the championships, but he's just had a better pace. But to be fair, that 29:14, whatever it was, is so fast. The likes of Simbu and even Wanjiru today not able to cope with that. But there is still 10k to go. And, you know, Kipketer's moving well at the minute, so are these two. But Simbu and Wanjiru are not completely out of this yet.
Well, it will change. I mean, that won't be, this first three position won't be the first position. If you look at it normally, there are vast changes in the last few miles of the marathon. But it looks like we're looking here overhead at the two contenders for the gold medal. Now, who's going to come out strongest? Said earlier that both sub 27-minute 10,000 meter runners. So when they inject that sort of pace, 29:13, that's a pace that they can be comfortable with. The crowds are out here, they're supporting this. You wouldn't be surprised to see one Kenyan and one Ethiopian battling it out for the title. Who's going to win this one? You wouldn't like to say at this stage, because they're both making efforts, they're both trying hard, they're both running really well.
Don't forget, you can keep following coverage of this as we come back to the stadium. It is on the red button, but for now, more from KJT and more from the women's 400 meters. Well, all sorts happening in the marathon here. We've got an outright leader now for the first time. Tola, the Olympic bronze medalist at 10,000 meters, looking very strong indeed as he comes up one of the very few climbs here, and he's on his last lap. It's a 10k lap, it's a long lap, but he's got a good clear lead, and all of a sudden the Boston Marathon winner Kirui, this looks like he's starting to fall apart because this gap has grown so fast. There he is, he's just come around the corner. Gideon Kipketer, his teammate, is still in third place, and the good news about Callum Hawkins is that with Miucci of Italy, the two of them have moved up a little bit and they're picking off athletes as they go. I think Callum's now into 7th place because they passed Osbelen just recently, and Osbelen was ahead of them at the 30k point, so it could be heading for Callum Hawkins. A top 6 finish would be phenomenal if he managed that, but at the moment the medal's still up for grabs because Kipketer's on his own. He can now see Kirui, his teammate, when they go through, I guess when they've gone through this twisty-turny section, you'll be able to see what sort of gap he's got to try and take the silver medal, but at the moment Tola out in front.
Yeah, it looked like Jeffrey Curry tried a couple of times to inject a little bit of pace to test out Tola a little bit, and then at one point Tola just looked around and said, no, okay, now I'm going, and now I'm going properly. And when he did, it was decisive, and it kind of knocked the wind out of the lungs of Jeffrey Curry a little bit, and he is now in danger, holding himself together to stay ahead of his teammate Kipketer.
And he looked strong, he looked comfortable there. He was powerful up that slight rise. It's not much of a rise, but it is a slight rise. He really did. Traffic trying to process as usual, with all the streets and all the roads along the embankment closed because of this World Championship Marathon, which is followed by the Women's World Championship Marathon. And we're looking down, we're looking overhead, we're coming in close, and now we're looking at the figure of Tamirat Tola of Ethiopia. Good 10,000 meter runner. Last year culminated in finishing in a bronze medal position behind Mo Farah in Rio. He then decided he's going to try the marathon again, and suddenly in Dubai he ran 2 hours and 4 minutes for the marathon. And there's the second placer, Kirui, the Boston Marathon winner. As a young man, surprised the world when he came to Brussels and ran sub 27 minutes for 10,000 meters. Nobody had ever heard of him before. But if you look at the times that Tola's run, he's a class athlete here. 59 minutes for a half marathon, 2:04 for a marathon, 26:57 for 10,000 meters runner. We're looking at a class act as he moves across, tries to get a bottle of water, unsuccessful. Well, I'll tell you what, he's better running than he is picking them up, isn't he?
Well, he's still a little bit inexperienced. He's only had 4 marathons. 2 of them were in Dubai. First time obviously here in London. His other one was he didn't finish in Berlin. It still isn't over this. You know, he made a big move, got a gap, but now Kirui is rallied again. I thought Kirui looked as though he was struggling, but I think he's rallied again, and Tola keeps looking behind, which isn't what you should be doing, and Kirui, I think, is closing it again.
I think he is, and I think Tola suddenly, after looking so powerful up the hill, small rise, hardly a hill, but I thought he looked good then. But he's starting to come under pressure now, and he grasped for those drinks. He should have just slowed taking the drink. If he wanted it, take it slowly, and he just took a sip and threw it away. And you know, he looks laboured there now. And there's Callum Hawkins running strongly, running well, head down, aggressive running from Callum Hawkins from Great Britain. And I must say, the Scottish athlete here, well, you know, he's moving through the field. And we look back in the history, we've only had 4 men, Steve, who finished in the first 8 in the whole history of the World Athletics Championships in the marathon. And could he be amongst that? Could he move on amongst it? We've got a 4th and 5th and a 7th and 8th, and he could be well inside the first 8.
Well, I think he's chasing Miucci here, and these two were working together, passing people. And as you were saying, Brendan, it's rare, incredibly rare for us to get a British athlete in the top 10. I think these two are 6th and 7th at the moment. A historic performance so far from Callum Hawkins. Let's see if he can pick any more off. But in the time being, let's go back to the stadium. Well, away from the excitement in the stadium, we're getting very excited in this marathon. We have a leader, Kirui. He's pulled away from Tola. Since you were last with us, Tola made the break and has suffered for that. And now Kirui caught him and went past him. Tola is starting to struggle. Behind Tola, there's a bit of a gap. And that gap is to Simbu and Kipkita, who Kipkita had been in 3rd place for a long time. Now Simbu's gone alongside him, and they're chasing Tola for the silver medal. So that's 3 men there. But then after those 3, the next athlete on the road, Callum Hawkins of Great Britain. He's now in 5th place, and he is within striking distance. If those men in front falter, if 2 of them were to falter, and it happens in the last 7 kilometers of a race like this, Callum Hawkins is moving so well, he must know if he keeps running strongly, it's a big, big gap. But if they come back towards him and continue to come back towards him, he'll get encouraged by that. We're not getting too carried away, Brendan, but he's running brilliantly.
But he's getting encouragement because he's running strongly, he's moving through. There are 2 athletes ahead of him already at the moment, Kipkita and Tola, who are both struggling. Now, when you struggle in the marathon, when it goes, it guns out together. Sorry, Paula, that was a local phrase.
Basically, when it goes, it's gone. And you're hanging on, and that is where Tola is right now. I mean, he's still moving. He's not collapsing as badly as we've seen some athletes fall apart in the closing stages of the marathon. But I think the point to underline right now, if you're out on the streets of London, give Callum Hawkins every bit of encouragement that you can out there. He's already running the race of his life. He's already must be very, very close to his personal best. But he is within chasing distance. Yes, it's relying on athletes folding. It is relying on athletes not being able to maintain ahead of him and him maintain and pick up that pace. But he's judged this so well so far. He's finding something else because he is running within reaching distance of a medal in his home country on the streets of London, and that is a fantastic run. So please, if you're out there, just give him a big shout on.
Well done, Paula, encouraging the crowds out on the streets. Look, since you said it, they're coming out. Can you see? Look, they're moving across, they're walking across, but they're looking at a class athlete here, the Boston Marathon winner, Kirui from Kenya. They're looking at a couple of athletes just behind them, struggling a little. And here's a quiz question, Steve, even for the aficionados out there. We've had a look at the results because we couldn't remember, but I just wonder if anybody out there can think who's Britain's highest ever performer in the men's marathon. Don't you say it, Paula, because you know the answer. You know it, Steve. I wonder. I bet nobody will guess his name.
Well, no, we've had obviously different athletes in the Olympic marathon. You can go back to John Brown, but in the world marathon, we've only had 1 person finish higher than the position currently occupied by Callum Hawkins. He's in 5th place at the moment. We've only ever had a 4th. We've never ever won a medal in the marathon at the World Championships. This is phenomenal running from Callum Hawkins. Whatever happens from here on in, this is a brilliant run from him. And what a year he's had since Rio. We thought that maybe he was coming into this a little bit underprepared, not in the sense that just there had been rumours he'd had 1 or 2 little niggles and things. In any marathon runner, you want to have a perfect preparation if you can. But he's run a brilliant race today, as Paula was saying. He's still got a few kilometres to go, and we will get the next indication. Kirui's going well. We'll get the next indication of whether those gaps are closing at the 40k point. But then after that, you've only got 2 and a bit k, so there's not much. But Kirui looking strong. Tola is in 2nd. And these switchbacks and turnarounds give you such a chance, Paula, to see where the challenge is coming from.
Yeah, those do. The ones amongst the buildings less so because you can't see ahead of you. For Karui, nothing's really in question here. He's looking in control, although he looks over his shoulder as I say that, but I think it was just a precautionary glance behind. And yes, 2 kilometers is not far to go in the marathon, but a lot can happen in that final 2 kilometers. If you're tired, and even if you're tired and you're maintaining and you're gaining psychologically because you can see people coming back to you, then it's really just about maintaining that, not trying to do any sudden increases, which I think is the mistake that Tola made. Tola felt good and thought, right, I'm going to pick the pace up, asked some questions here of Karui, and what he ended up doing was emptying his own tank and leaving himself with nothing left to be able to hold on over this final lap. And he's the one he is still holding it together better than he looked as though he was going to a few kilometers back, but he will be getting some information from the sides. We're hoping that Callum Hawkins will be getting more information from his home support. They're just letting him know what those gaps are, what he has to maintain, because when it gets really twisty and he can't see ahead of him, just some information from the side. Yeah, you've now got it down 5 seconds, you've now got it down another 7 seconds, then that really helps him.
Well, it's a big gap that Karui has, no doubt about him, but just to underline exactly how well he's going, we've had Hugh Jones has finished twice in the top 10. He finished 5th, his best performance in '83, the first ever World Championships. He was 8th, and followed that up with a 5th in 1987 in Rome. And the man who finished 4th in 1995 was Peter Whitehead, and he was followed home by Richard Naroka, who was in 7th place. And they're our best performances. So since then, that was... It's a Sunday morning. I'm trying to work out how many years ago. A lot of years ago. Anyway, Tola, 22. Thanks, Ben. Tola is moving okay, as Paula said. He's not cornering that particularly well. You know, it's a marathon. This stage of the marathon, those corners hurt. And Karui looking strong. So is there more drama in terms of the medals? He looks good. He looks strong. Gold medal could well be going to Kenya here. The silver medal is held at the moment by Tola. A real scrap following him for the bronze with Simbu and Kipkita. Simbu from Tanzania, Kipkita also of Kenya, and then Callum Hawkins of Great Britain. Another 30 seconds adrift of them. Here's Simbu. Now he's clear in 3rd now. This is the first chance we've seen him for a little while. And look at Kipkita struggling across the road there. That's the first person that Callum Hawkins will see. So Callum, if he's going strong, may well have Kipkita in his sights. We're waiting for Callum Hawkins to come round the corner. This is the 4th placed athlete in this race. He's looking anxiously over his shoulder. The crowds are cheering. That tells me that Callum Hawkins is coming round the corner, and Kipkita's struggling. So that's 1 place he could certainly catch, certainly make up in the latter stages. And if Tola turned badly, Kipkita was even worse.
Well, actually, when you saw him go around that corner, Steve, that was explaining how tired he is. He was leaning on the corner as though the corner was going to give him some support. And they're passing St. Paul's Cathedral. We're looking for Britain's Callum Hawkins, and that's the leader, Karui. Closing up to 2 hours, not much further to go. They're going through the twists and turns for the last time, and then they'll head towards Tower Bridge. And we look at Karui, the Boston Marathon winner, had a little bit of a spell when Tola headed him, struggled for a little bit as he goes through the welcome shower at that point, and now 1 hour 58 minutes on the clock, and Geoffrey Karui of Kenya looking as though he's just got to keep standing to win this one.
Well, he hasn't got far to go. He'll be passing the 40-kilometer mark soon. I would estimate him probably another 2-3 minutes. Now Tola, he's struggling. How much is he struggling though? He's still probably got a good minute and a half on Callum Hawkins, and that's a lot to make up. He'd have to completely fall apart in the last 3K, and that's, I mean, you would never wish that on any athlete, but he's moving okay. He's tired, the knee lift's not there, but he's covering ground, and he could well be hanging on for silver. But how much danger is he in from Simbu behind?
Yeah, I think unfortunately for Callum Hawkins and for Simbu, it doesn't look as though Tola has lost that much. I mean, I made it, what, about 30-40 seconds working just on counting through the showers, that gap now, and he's not falling apart. If you contrast his form with that of Kipketer, who is really falling apart, then Simbu definitely maintaining his form. He looks good, and he can maintain that and can close that gap on Paula, but I don't know whether he can close it fast enough in the space that he has left, and we're still waiting to see just how close Callum Hawkins is. Has he yet made up ground on Kipketer?
Well, we're looking at the worldwide coverage of this event, and obviously the worldwide coverage is involved in the positions for gold, silver and bronze. But if they would be a little bit biased for a few minutes and just switch the cameras further down the road, we might see a very welcome sight of the young Scotsman, the young, aggressive 25-year-old, getting better all the time, clearly running his best international performance today. As we watch Karui looking smooth, looking comfortable, and the few twists and turns showing off this great city to the rest of the world. Wouldn't mind them showing the Scotsman to the rest of the world.
Well, this coverage is for the whole world, as Brendan was saying. The host broadcaster has to cover the medals, but often in the marathon, though, you should really be looking as well for the athletes coming through, because I don't know how many times Brendan's reminded everybody that the medal positions can change so quickly, even in the last mile or two. So Tola hanging on at the moment in second place. The Ethiopian very tired. He made a big bid to try and win this race. He's seen Karui move away from him, but he's still got a gap to Simbu. Simbu trying to chase, having a race of his career as well. But Simbu was 5th at the Rio Olympics last year, you know. He's still a bit inexperienced. We showed in Rio that he knew how to judge a race, and he's judged it pretty well here today. That would be a big performance from him if he hangs on for the bronze medal. And will Callum Hawkins get into the top 4? We're beginning to think now. There's Kipketer. He's 4th at the moment. Where's Callum Hawkins? Kipketer looked as though he was struggling. He's still looking behind him.
You would think Callum was a bit camera shy, Steve, wouldn't you? He's kind of loitering in the city here somewhere. 5th place, we're pretty sure. Keeping out a camera shot, you know, maybe he doesn't want the publicity today yet.
Well, let's just see if we get a shot here. Kipketer, there he is. He's catching him, gritting his teeth. What a performance this is from Callum Hawkins. I mean, 4th is the worst place to finish in any championships. However, Paula's not. I finished 4th, Paula, as well in the major champs.
It's better
but
than 5th.
Of course, exactly. And, you know, this would equal Britain's best ever performance in a World Marathon Championship, and he's acquitted himself brilliantly. Top 10 at the Olympics, and he's heading perhaps for a 4th place here. He's got to scrap on for that. We think the medals are safe with the athletes who currently hold them, because now they're beyond 40k. Just over a mile of running left for our leader.
Just over a mile for the leader, just a little bit more than that for Callum Hawkins, who, apart from the fact that he may finish as high as any Britain's ever finished in the World Championship Marathon, he also may, if he can keeps going strongly, he could challenge and should challenge his personal best time. Maybe he could run under 2 hours 10, which would be a fabulous performance in the race, which wasn't designed to run fast. It was designed to be the championship of the world. It was designed to show off this wonderful city to the world. The crowds are out there. They know about marathon running in this city. They've seen some of the great marathons in championships. We've seen the Olympic marathon. We're looking at Simbu, the 3rd placed athlete from Tanzania, and there goes Callum Hawkins. He's past Kipketer. He's into 4th place. There's a shot just gone up in the stadium. The crowd have responded here where we are in the stadium. Now Callum Hawkins is in a position where he's equaled the best ever performance by a British athlete in the World Championships, and it couldn't happen to a tougher guy. Now, can he just keep going? Keep looking forward, Callum. We've seen him on the country. We've seen him on the road. We've seen him run 60 minutes for a half marathon. Now, can we see him do something today? Come on, Callum, just keep going.
And I'm just looking, if you contrast the front view of Callum Hawkins, because he is really tired. He's working harder than he's ever worked, and you can see he's lifted his sunglasses up, he's grimacing, but he knows he's having the race of his life here. He knows how well he's running. He's getting information from the sidelines, and his form is holding together. Running from the back, you wouldn't know how much you can see he's hurting when you get a front view. And he is just, how much is the gap?
Paula is 59 seconds behind 2nd place. He's closer to third, but Simbu's moving better than Tola. Tola is falling apart. Now, this is going to come to the wire here, because Simbu is going to catch this guy, or is going to get close to catching him. Tola is really struggling, but it might just be enough in those legs, heavy legs, to carry him to the finish line. Callum Hawkins is charging, and he's charging fast, but he might just run out of road.
He might run out of road, and he needs that information. He needs to know how much he's closing on, and he needs to know that it's not Simbu he's working for, it's Tola he's working for. So if the team out there can get that information to him, he's using every little last bit of energy he's got anyway. He's not going to change how he's going to run, but psychologically it can just give you a little bit of a boost.
Well, he is an aggressive runner. We saw him start the year at the cross country in Edinburgh. He was so close to winning that one, but his style of running is aggressive, it's positive, he always wants to have a go. We're looking at a fine performer here in Jeffrey Karui, the Boston Marathon winner. We're looking at good performances. We're looking at Tola in second place under pressure. We're looking at Simbu from Tanzania running strongly. We're looking at Callum Hawkins has just passed Kipkeita, so now in fourth place. He seems to be as strong as the rest of them, but as you've said, Paula, as you've said, Steve, is he going to run out of road? And I think he's going to be very close to his personal best. It would be a wonderful tonic for him if he can only finish fourth, the best ever by a British male marathon runner, because we're sitting next to somebody who did win the World Championship Marathon in Helsinki a year or two ago. Paula, what's your view now? Do you think you're getting nervous? I know.
I'm excited, and I'm nervous, but I want him to get the medal. Obviously, he was one of my picks for a medal there. But earlier on in this race, I just thought he was going to have an outstanding run, and he was going to be 6th, 7th, 8th, and still run a personal best. But he's worked so hard in the closing stages of this race, and everything is changing. It's just that those gaps are big, and there's not much road left to make up those gaps on, and just keep fighting. He's doing that anyway. I mean, we can't really. I'm just getting too nervous and too excited for him.
I wish he'd do a bit more of his running on camera though, instead of in the hiding away behind the lead bikes in fourth place. But that's Tola. He looks to have recovered a little. And there's Simbu, the third placer. He still looks to be running comfortably. They're well within the last mile there. He's looking over his shoulder. Actually, he'd be better off looking ahead, because if he looks down the road, he'll see the bike, and he'll see a tiring Tola from Ethiopia. And we'll also see shortly, we will see the vision of the Kilbarcan Harrier, coached by his father, trains a lot with his brother, who ran in the Olympic Games with him. The running family from Scotland, well, they're doing us proud today. They've done a really good job. And I think he's already paid tribute to Steve Jones, one of our great marathon runners. But Steve never was in the first 6 in the World Championships in the marathon. But here comes a man looking like a champion.
Well, he has one last look over his shoulder as he turns the corner, and he'll see Tower Bridge ahead of him. And what a spectacular backdrop to finish the World Marathon Championship. It's a feature of the London Marathon every year, and it signals the finish for what's been a tough race for Karui, but a perfectly judged one as well. For a little while, he thought the gold medal might be disappearing when Tola made a big move, but it was too early, and it was ill-judged. And the winner of the Boston Marathon just waited and was patient, and then when he made his move, it was decisive. And now he can start to salute the crowds. Brilliant performance from this man. He's a strong man. You don't win Boston without being strong. That's a tough marathon, Boston. And he's got a big career ahead of him. He's a good track runner who's moved up to the marathon. And he's been absolutely brilliant today. This, a gold medal, of course, which Kenya always thinks they should own. Hasn't always been the case. But the world marathon title goes to Karui of Kenya. 2 hours 8 and 27 seconds. He won't worry about what's happening behind, but everybody else will be watching for a superb run from him. So strong in the last 15 kilometers. and particularly the last 10k. And hats off to Tola. He's held it together. He's so tired. He's wandering across the road. He might just hang on to the silver medal here. One last look at the watch, one last look behind, and the charging Simbu is coming. Does he have enough time to catch him? The line is about 300 meters away for Tola, and that gap there is a good 30 meters, so maybe just too much for for Simbu to catch the Ethiopian. But it's 3 medals for the 3 great running countries of East Africa. Kenya, the gold. Still, Simbu is doing his best to try and catch Tola, but the Ethiopian just hanging on. Simbu of Tanzania chasing him home. The last 100 meters, one last little sprint, one last effort. Simbu tries again, Tola looks again. There won't be quite enough time though. As Kirui celebrates, Tola takes the silver medal for Ethiopia. Simbu takes the bronze for Tanzania, just a couple of seconds behind, and now we await. And what a reception there's going to be here for this man, Brendan, Callum Hawkins. What a performance.
Great performance by Callum Hawkins, equaling the best ever by a British athlete in the World Championship marathon. Close to a personal best. I just hope he's going to work it. 2 hours 10:52. He's going to come home. He's cheering the crowds on. He's run a personal best. He's finished a glorious 4th. At the age of 25, this man, it could be one of the greats of marathon running in years to come. But pleasure watching him, Paula.
It was a real pleasure and huge well done to Callum Hawkins. He worked hard for that. He's run a personal best. He's not run a personal best in a race that was geared to running fast times, that was geared to running personal best. He played an instrumental part in geeing the pace up, in stirring the pace up, getting people moving in those early stages, and that takes it out of you to surge like that. Meucci, finishing now, has run a much steadier race, a much more measured race, and that's why he's maybe got a little bit more left in his legs to finish, but Callum Hawkins showed a lot of fight there and a lot of potential to progress from that in the future.
Well, there's the champion, the strong man from Boston Marathon, another great Kenyan distance runner, another gold medal for Kenya. And Callum Hawkins, I'm just looking at his time, 2 hours 10 minutes and 17 seconds. Well, he'll break 2 hours 10 soon. It wasn't to be today. 4th place, well, you can't get better than that. If you're a British male distance runner, we've never done better than that. So Callum Hawkins, we really do salute you. As the other athletes who come in here with much faster times than him are still finishing.
And 26 seconds in the end. You know, he made up an enormous amount of ground on those people ahead of him. He was a couple of minutes behind, you know, with the 10k to go. Well, certainly from the leader, about a minute and a half, a minute 45 to second and third. So 26 seconds away from a medal at the World Championships. I know that sounds a lot, but in marathon terms, it's not a lot. And had he had another mile or so, well, you never know. He didn't. It's the marathon distance. He was brilliant. He gave everything. He had nothing left at the end. There he is. And I'm pleased that, you know, sometimes when you finish 4th in the championships, as we see the winner of London this year just crossing the line now, Kamuchi coming behind him. The point is, Brendan, that, and I guess for you, Paul, as well, by finishing 4th in London, he's been lauded there by the crowds as a bit of a champion, which is great, because often at a 4th in the championships away from home, not many people would have noticed, but I'm glad he got a massive cheer. Even here in the stadium, they saw it on the big screen and recognising the achievement of Callum Hawkins.
Yeah, I think if you didn't know Callum Hawkins before, you have sat up and taken notice of him now. But the great thing about it is that Callum won't be happy with that. Callum will look at it and he'll think, right, I can go away, I can work harder, I can learn a little bit more, and I can grow as an athlete, I can mature as an athlete, and I can come back and I can get that medal at one point in the future, and I can make you a huge personal best. And just look at the people finishing behind him. Daniel Wanjuri won the London Marathon, and he's finished a long, long way behind Callum Hawkins today.
I think now it's about Callum, about deciding about the future. He's got a great setup there. His father and his brother together, they've set up a formidable running team. His coach, as we watch Mutai from Uganda finishing, his coach, apart from his father, gets advice from Steve Jones, and you couldn't get better advice. But he's also got that built-in personality. He's strong, he's he wants to be aggressive. He wants to run at the front. He wants to try and beat people. We see it on the country. We see it on the road, as we see Jaffrey finishing now. But an athlete again who Callum should be really pleased. He's the likes of the people he's beaten, and I think the next step for him is choose the right one, choose the right marathon. Maybe it's against Mo or in the future in a marathon, but who knows. But Callum Hawkins really done us proud today, done Scotland proud.
Well, great scenes on Tower Bridge. Some tired athletes coming in now. And some very good athletes maybe not going to make it through. Karui there just being guided towards. I think they get their medals actually down in the moat on the grass there, which was around the Tower of London in the ceremony down there. And the women's marathon due to start at 2 p.m. and well, at this very point. So there'll be, I'm not quite sure what happens to the very, very slow finishes, if there are any of them. There will be a few. The Chassa just coming in. There's the American, former Kenyan, Quebec, receiving the plaudits as well. And the women's race, Ali Dixon, Charlotte Perdue. Tracy Barlow, of course, as well. We're getting plenty of support from Great Britain. Look at where Meccan is. Meccan just crossing the line now, a long way down, and he was touted as a possible medalist as well. Well, we're still absorbing that wonderful performance from Callum Hawkins. 4th place in a field that had so many very, very good, particularly the African runners. And of course, they never all run flat out. Well, not flat out, they run flat out, but not everybody brings their A game at a championship. There's always going to be 2 or 3, and that's what Callum would have looked for. But the point was he brought more than his A game. Off a very slow first 10K or so, he still produced a personal best. And I think, as both Brendan and Paula were saying, that's the start. I mean, he's already started. Rio showed us what he's capable of, but that's underlined the potential for Callum Hawkins going forward. Of course, the next World Championships will be in Doha. It's nice and cool there. And then the Olympics will be in Tokyo. It's never difficult running marathon in Tokyo. Good luck, Callum. Look at what he did today. That must give him confidence going forward. Let's just look at the final result then. Geoffrey Karui of Kenya taking the gold medal with a very, very impressive run. 2 hours 8:27. Tola 2 hours 9:49, hanging on in the end for the silver medal by just 2 seconds from Alphonse Simbu of Tanzania, and then a further 26 seconds behind in a personal best time, Callum Hawkins of Great Britain in 4th, equaling the best ever performance by a male in the World Championship marathon. Andy Davis coming through. He came in after Simpson was couldn't run because of injury, so 2 hours 17. I haven't seen Josh Griffiths yet. I'm not sure, he hasn't finished yet. They were running together for an awful long time, the two of them. And we'll just see them across the line. I said earlier on, as if you missed it, 2 o'clock the women's marathon starts. We've still got more action here in the stadium before that.